5 Network. This is OpenLine.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to OpenLine. Tonight I have a special guest, Representative John Ray Clemmons, joining me, and the phone lines are open. This is OpenLine. It is your chance to ask our guest any questions you would like and get an answer tonight. So the number is at the bottom of the screen, 615-737+. As I mentioned, Representative Clemmons is joining us. You are running for mayor coming up August 1st. It's going to be here before we know it.
It is. Time is flying by, and we've been out on the campaign trail for the last 5 months now, and building up momentum, and it's going to be here before we know it.
And that's what I expect most calls to be about, is your vision for Metro as we move forward. People are going to want to know, why are you campaigning? What are you campaigning on? And we're going to get to that. But first, I want to look back and look at the state capitol first. We just ended the legislative session. And of course, the big story that NewsChannel 5 investigates has broken in just the past, Friday, and it's developed even more today. The story involving Glenn Cassida and his chief of staff, Kate Cawthorn, which the Tennessee is now reporting has resigned. We are working to confirm that. Just regarding text messages, racist text messages basically, and also sexually explicit ones that we have learned that Glenn Cassida has chimed in on in years past. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think it's very disappointing to think about that's going on in our state government at the highest levels. It's seriously concerning to me and many others. I haven't seen the stories today breaking. We've been out talking to voters across the city, so I don't know the latest updates. But the reports that have been developing over the past couple of weeks have been very, very concerning. Of course, the racist text messages last week, I don't want anyone to forget about those and what was possibly done there to try to frame an activist, those allegations. So, I think there's a lot of concerning issues going on. And if he did resign, I think that's a good outcome from that. And I think we should take a look at others who are behaving that way as well.
Tell me about Glenn Cassida and his involvement in this. What do you think he should do?
Well, I've never thought that Glenn should be the Speaker of the House of Representatives. I've had, we disagree on policy, of course, and I've become concerned with what I consider to be inappropriate leadership. And so if there is any substance to the allegations that he has played a role in this in any way, I think that he should resign as well.
Let's talk about this legislative session. It just wrapped up. The Democratic caucus shortly released a statement after this saying it is the worst session in the state's history. Tell me about any successes that you feel came out of it and the failures from your perspective.
Well, the biggest success is the Katie Beckett waiver. That was a tremendous success that we've been pushing for a long time.
Can you explain what that is for folks who don't know? So
what it does is essentially allows for assistance for children with severe disabilities and gives them governmental assistance. If they, if they need a certain level of help, then they qualify and they're able to stay in their homes and receive the type of governmental assistance that they need to be able to receive the care that they deserve and need.
And really impacts families who make a salary that would disqualify them for state assistance.
Right.
And so many parents have had to quit jobs and stop working, which is not something they wanted to do, just so they could get this help because they couldn't afford the care that their medically fragile children needed.
That's absolutely right. Unfortunately, we had a lot of parents come from across Tennessee, and the way that bill got across the finish line and really we were able to push that through at the end is because of the advocacy of parents who were affected by this, and they brought their children up to Capitol Hill, and just them taking the time out of their lives and and caring for their children to come to the Capitol, share their story, and really have that impact on legislators from a personal standpoint. I think it really made a difference. And at the end of the day, we had disagreements. The House had a version that fully funded it at $27 million. The Senate disagreed. They wanted to use half of that to pay for tax cuts. But ultimately, the House prevailed, fortunately, and it was a bipartisan effort. Sam Whitson from Franklin carried that legislation. I think at the end of the day, we had maybe 50 primary co-sponsors on that bill, and we were able to forge ahead and work together to get that done after the conference committee. And I think that will benefit a lot of families. And it's one of those pieces, it's a feel-good story out of an otherwise very, very difficult and harmful year in the legislature.
From your perspective, what are the failures?
So criminalizing voter registration is a significant failure. It's no coincidence that the Secretary of State, Trey Hargett, and Mark Goins, the coordinator of elections, proposed this legislation as a direct result of the Equity Alliance and the Black Voter Project registering over 50,000 new black and brown voters in the state of Tennessee. They used some of the discrepancies and some of the Scrivener errors on those voter registrations as the grounds for this, but they followed the law, they did the job as to empower people across the state of Tennessee, and then lo and behold, a few months later, after all these new registered voters, now we're going to criminalize people who register voters who may make an honest mistake, not put a middle initial, or don't want to give someone, a perfect stranger coming to their door trying to register them to vote, they may not want to give them their social security number. And once you give them that voter registration form, it was our understanding, once you take someone's voter registration form, you have to, by law, turn it in. And you can understand why that would be.
Right.
You wouldn't want people sitting on voter registration forms. And so it puts the people doing this voter registration efforts in a very difficult situation. And so they came and they passed that law, and that's very harmful. When we are taking proactive efforts to criminalize voter registration efforts, it is seriously concerning, and I would say it's legally suspect.
Let's talk about the ESAs, the Education Savings Account. This was really Governor Lee's
vouchers,
yes.
What they are.
This was Governor Lee's baby. He got it passed, and it affects Davidson and Shelby counties, which do have very poor performing schools.
Well, there are great things going on in every school across this city. People use this term failing schools or doing poorly. That's not a fair description.
You don't think so?
There are incredible things going on in every school across this city. Now, do schools have different challenges, and are they, teachers facing different burdens in different schools? Absolutely. But that's on us to provide them the resources they need to do their job. Every child across this city deserves an opportunity to succeed. We need to be looking in the mirror as legislators and seeing what else we can do rather than taking action to pass vouchers specifically targeting Nashville and Memphis. Now, this is another constitutionally suspect piece of legislation. It's vouchers under, you can call it whatever you want to call it, and the Governor Lee decided he was going to call it something else. Already the cost has skyrocketed. It's ballooned. I think it started out at $49 million. At the last day of the legislature, it ended up at $330 million. Wow. This is a failed model. It's failed in other cities, yet we're going to try to make it fit into Nashville just because a few people might have a financial interest at the end of the day in doing this under the guise of school choice. That's not what this is all about. This isn't about school choice. There's some bigger aim here.
What do you think is that bigger aim?
Well, Governor Lee should be asked that very question, and the legislators that help him pass it. We're talking about taking $7,300 and giving it to families that qualify for up to twice the free and reduced lunch program. That's almost $63,000 for a household in the city, and to give them $7,300. Show me a private school in Nashville that you can attend for $7,300. Right. That's not going to cover the activities fees at some of the private schools in this city. And so we have to wonder, what is the bigger aim here? If the aim is, okay, let's take a select group of children and give them the opportunity to attend better schools, as they call them. Okay, that's fine and well. If you want to do that, that's your prerogative, try that. But what's the bigger aim? Is the bigger aim to try to improve the performance of the schools that they're leaving behind? Because that's not going to be what's accomplished with this. You're going to ultimately pull people out of the schools, and you're going to create brain drain, and you're going to create this revenue drain to pay for these vouchers. In only 2 cities, if the governor really believed in this, then why not make it apply to the entire state? Why not make it apply to his home county and Williamson County? There are some schools that are having difficulty and performing worse than Nashville and Memphis schools across the state, but they didn't target those schools. So we have to be wondering, why are they targeting Nashville and Memphis?
Okay, we're going to go to Steve. He's on the line. Steve, go ahead with your question. Or Stephen, I'm sorry. Go ahead with your question.
Just a moment. Let me get Stephen.
Okay.
While he was waiting, he went.
You might be having a bite to eat.
I know.
Okay. Just one moment.
Okay.
It's your question.
Hi there again.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I'm asking about the future of Nashville's transportation network. And Lebanon into Nashville has a heavy rail route that's well established. What's prohibiting the other major heavy rail routes from being expanded to provide commuting from Murfreesboro or Franklin or whatever?
All right, very good. Thank you, Stephen, for your call tonight. Let's jump right into your thoughts on transportation and how this would affect Nashville.
Yeah, this is a serious problem, so thank you for the question, Stephen. This is a big issue. You know, right now, CSX and these private rail companies control these railways, and they're pushing freight on these rail lines, and they don't want to give public access or right-of-ways to allow us to do this commuter rail. Fortunately, under the leadership of Congressman Bob Clement, back in the 90s, we were able to move this rail system through to Lebanon, which is actually my hometown, and we were able to work with Nashville Eastern, I believe it was at the time, to use those tracks at certain hours. And we should be looking at all possible alternatives to address the serious traffic problem, not only in Nashville, but the entire region. Because as you know, we have a lot of people coming in from the surrounding counties, whether it's Lebanon, Franklin, Springfield, Dixon, coming into the urban core. And this is something that has to be focused on. And right now, there's no plan, there's no vision, there's no work being done to accomplish that and address this serious issue. It's one of the major reasons I'm running for mayor.
Well, let's talk about that. I want to know why you wanted to get into this race. Let's start there.
Yeah, well, I've been working on these issues in a very difficult environment at the state legislature. You know, I had success on transportation infrastructure issues working with Governor Haslam. We're getting 440 redone, which nobody thought would ever happen.
Right.
And it took a long time, but fortunately, you know, Speaker Harwell and I and Governor Haslam, we worked to get that accomplished and move this city forward in that direction. But as you know, we have bigger issues. That's just our existing infrastructure. And so working on these issues at the state level, whether it be affordable housing, and I passed multiple affordable housing bills, I passed public education legislation in the state legislature, and I'm really passionate about those issues and about improving the quality of life for everyone in Nashville. And I've become incredibly frustrated with the lack of vision and no plan and no action at the local level. For a long time, Nashville has benefited from very strong mayors that had a vision for how to move this city forward. Right now, that's lacking, and that's something that I want to provide.
And you think that is specifically lacking with Mayor Briley's leadership?
Currently, yes.
You were happy under Mayor Berry's leadership. You thought we were moving in the right direction?
Well, we were moving in the right direction, and she had a plan for how to move the city forward. Obviously, she moved forward with a transit referendum that ultimately did not pass. I would say there are various reasons that did not pass.
Were you a fan of it?
I was one of the ones who put the enabling legislation in the Improve Act and worked with Governor Haslam to empower local governments to have the ability to raise revenue to create 21st century transportation infrastructure systems. So did I have personal disagreements with aspects of the plan and how it was being communicated and executed? Yes, but did I think that we need to do something and move forward on this? Absolutely. We are so far behind the curve right now on this issue and many other issues, and there's no excuse for it. We are benefiting from unprecedented prosperity right now in our city and this region. This should be a priority, and we should be moving forward. The current mayor has promised not to do anything during the entire next 4 years. That's unacceptable. We cannot afford to wait any longer to take action on this. We need a strategic plan. The next transit referendum will be run out of the mayor's office, and we will move forward on this issue. And I think any mode of transportation has to be on the table. Technology is evolving. We can't tie ourselves to any one mode of transportation, but we have to work on getting regional buy-in, because again, you know, these surrounding counties are putting burden on our infrastructure as well, but we need leadership at the local level, because at the end of the day, we're going to have to get the state to buy in, and we're going to have to get those federal matching grants. But that's not going to come if we don't have leadership and a plan at the local level, and that starts in the mayor's office.
Can you give me 2 or 3 bullet points of things that you think must be part of a transportation plan?
Well, there's a couple of different ways of looking at it. Short-term, cost-effective things that we can do to address traffic on day one. We can do lane shifts. We can address timed lighting that we've been talking about in this city for a long time. But if you drive around this city, you know, any of us that drive around, you know that those lights aren't timed. We can be doing timed lighting using smart technology like other cities use. We're putting up a lot of new light poles. We can put smart technology devices on those to gauge density and adjust traffic patterns accordingly. And and we can do a lot more with public parking in this city and update it to make it more responsive. You know, cities like San Francisco, much bigger city, much denser, but they found out that 30% of the traffic downtown at any given time was a result of people driving around looking for parking.
Oh, wow.
So if we just invested a little money and took ownership of our public parking and use technology, and all these people coming into our town know where they can park at any given time, no adjustable rates, you know, that are being charged at that particular meter at any given time, that will address a big part of our traffic problem in our downtown core. We can continue working with private sector companies to adjust and have flexible work hours for their employees. There's a lot of different things we can be doing that don't cost a lot of money, but will have a very real impact on traffic in the city. Now, at the same time, we have to be listening. We have to go out there and actually listen to all the various communities across this city, because you know we have a lot of different roadways, a lot of different sizes, and a lot of different neighborhoods that want different things for their community and maybe have different needs as well. We need to be focused on listening to them and then building a plan that reflects the wishes of the community. Not building a plan, then listening to the community or pretending to listen to the community and making their input fit our plan. We have got to do a better job of creating a more equitable transportation system in this city and the greater Nashville region that increases mobility, you know, not just to get people into downtown, but to help people who may not have a car or can't afford a car get to the grocery store. We have to be looking at a way to benefit every Nashville family, because every Nashville family should be first and foremost in our minds, and everyone deserves to be benefiting from the boom. And as we move forward, we must have a city that is growing in a much smarter, more thoughtful way and be more purposeful in our planning.
Do you think rail coming in from all the different counties is one of the most likely ways that we're going to accomplish a good transit system in our area?
I think rail has to be on the table, but again, we have to evaluate how much money we're able to raise and what type of system we can plan for. I personally love rail. I would love to be able to have access to the CSX rail line going down 65, you know, and connect and have something going down the middle of the interstate, down I-24 to Murfreesboro.
Right.
You know, the people who drive in from Murfreesboro every day, I don't know how they do it.
It's unbelievable. You spend a lot of your life in that car. Every
minute we spend in our car is one less minute at our job, doing the things we love, or spending it with our children at home and helping them with their homework. And right now, Nashville families and residents and those in surrounding counties are not benefiting from leadership and a vision about how to solve this problem. We have got to move forward on this, and we've got to work together and have some collaboration to make this happen for the benefit of everyone.
Before we take a break, I want to go to Ann here on the phone. Ann, I hate to keep you waiting. Go ahead with your question.
Yes, the city of Nashville was very specific in their desire to have a community oversight board. And as was feared, in the first 6 months, major changes have occurred that altered their vision for this board. What will you do as mayor to mend this board and to help alter those changes so that this board can be what the community wanted, since it's now not what the city desired it to be?
All right, thank you, Anna. Let's talk about first, I think Anna's referencing efforts made on Capitol Hill to change the way boards operate across this state.
Right.
Where did things end in the legislature?
Well, at the end of the day, what happened was they passed a bill that requires council approval to get a subpoena. And the subpoena power was at issue from the very beginning. And of course, once again, legislators from across Tennessee that don't live in our city decided to step up and try to tell Nashville what to do, when we had an overwhelming majority of Nashville voters decide that they wanted a community oversight board. So now, you know, Metro is going to operate within the constructs of the law as passed, and move forward to execute what was intended to the best of our ability. I think that's important. But again, she's getting to a bigger issue, which is state preemption. And we, that continues to be a problem that my colleagues and I here in the Davidson County delegation have led the fight against every year, whether it's the Airbnbs, whether it's local hire provisions, or any given things. The state keeps wanting to come in and tell Nashville how to run its city. Now, and at the end of the day, I will say this: Metro government should never legislate out of fear. The mayor and the Metro Council should always do what they feel is in the best interest of Nashville residents and move forward accordingly in the best interest of our families in this city. Now, the other hand of that is the state legislature. I can tell you from serving up there for 5 years, very unpredictable.
Right.
What's going to get on their radar, what they're going to decide to do on any given day. But what I do know is that the state legislature preys on weakness. And right now, they see a very weak and divided city government, and they are going to continue to take action that's adverse or contrary to what is in the best interest of Nashville residents until we get strong, decisive leadership in the mayor's office.
How are you going to combat, though? Because, Mayor Briley, I know it's a nonpartisan position, but he tends to lead, on the Democratic side. You are a Democrat. You're facing off against many Republicans up on the Hill. How do you change what's happening if you're in that mayor's office?
Well, I do what I've done in the state legislature. I've stood up and spoke out for what I believed was right and what the voters of Nashville wanted. And I haven't hesitated to stand up and fight back against this stuff. At the end of the day, well, is it possible that they'll have the votes? Maybe. And can they do that? We need some leadership and be able to work across the aisle to prevent that from happening. And right now, you don't have someone who's willing to stand up and fight back. You talk about, the current mayor leaning to one political direction or another. We had debates on vouchers for the last 5 months. The mayor never said anything or showed up a single day to talk about his opposition to vouchers. He was absent. When we mentioned on the Hill pushing back on his privatized parking bill, the 8 top officials from the mayor's office showed up in the state legislature within 24 hours begging us not to raise that issue. And so we have to ask ourselves, what are the priorities? And so it's not just a Democrat versus Republican issue here. It's about what are we going to do that's in the best interest of Nashville residents, and how are we going to push forward and move in the right direction to address the issues that are really on the front of everyone's mind. And I've shown my willingness to stand up and speak out in the state legislature. I'll continue to do that in the mayor's office. And I'll tell you what else we need is a strong Metro legal department that's not afraid to push back. We need a real litigator and real, strong litigation presence in Metro Legal that is not afraid to push back when we feel appropriate.
And you say this coming as an attorney and mediator yourself,
I am an attorney and a litigator, but having that ability and showing that strength and a willingness, or at least not a hesitation, to push back where necessary, I think sends a signal to stop messing with us. No one knows what's better for Nashville than those of us representing Nashville and elected by Nashville residents. And so that's the position and the approach we have to take to this. Now, again, there's a fine line. We don't need to be picking fights, but we do need to never hesitate to do what we think is in the best interest of Nashvillians, and especially when we've had something like a referendum where an overwhelming majority spoke out in favor of something. We should always push forward and fight to the best of our ability to uphold what the voters wanted.
Very good. We got to take a quick break. When we come back, more of your questions. You can go ahead and call in and get in line. 615-737 is the number to call. Stay with us.